to the cloud, recording, and we will again try to do it live on the Facebook. Okay. Okay, that's prepping. All right, so tonight's episode, once again, I don't know if folks, have obviously already watched the whole thing like many of us have, and if folks are, keeping up and trying to watch the episode, each night before we discuss it, so it's fresh on your brain or what have you. But tonight's episode is called Black Irish, right? Starts off, they showing a lot of random footage, skaters and all this type of stuff, blah blah blah, random, Boston footage. Then it comes down to the dude who worked at Walgreens, right? His name was Stephen Bannister. Somebody else coming in, yeah. Stephen Bannister, who worked at Walgreens, and he dips off. Well, I gotta put the title to this. Discussion. What you call it? Trial 4, episode 7. Okay, boom, there we go. So, Stephen Bannister worked at Walgreens. He, goes out and takes a break, right? Goes over to Dunkin' Donuts, right? And he sees old boy in the truck as he dips, but doesn't necessarily make any kind of notice or what have you. And then goes on about his business. And then on coming back, he knocks on old boy's window, and then that's when he sees old boy is, his face is bloody and all this type of thing. He goes then into the Walgreens, tells his boss, whatever they call the cops. Now, not for nothing, what's funny about this too, what's hilarious to me is that that was like the calmest 911 call ever. If I'm a manager at Walgreens, not to say he had nothing to do with it or, whatever, but if I'm a manager at Walgreens, I'm a manager at Walgreens, ain't nothing popping off except somebody trying to steal, some Tylenols or something. You know what I mean? So if my employee comes in and says, yo, the cop outside, he's shot in his car. And I'm calling 911. I'm like, yo, the cop is out. He's shot. The guy was like, hello, there's like, yo.
And then at the end he said, this is an emergency.
Right. He sounded like there was a spill in aisle 4. You know what I mean? That was the calmest, weirdest 911 call I ever heard, particularly for two, I'm assuming, white guys who just, on some regular thing. That struck me as odd. But okay, so boom. Now, then they go into the recreation of the event, right? This is where I think the other day we said 2 and something inches, but it was 3 1/4 inches. So it's 3 1/4 inches. Now, a good rule of thumb for that is a business card. You know what I mean? A business card is 3.5 inches, 3.5 inches. So the window was cracked a little bit less than a business card. And I'm like, I'm a pretty skinny dude. I could, I guess, get my arm through there. You know what I mean? But that's that's a thing. The window was only cracked a slight portion. They themselves determined that the shooter was left-handed. And Sean is a righty. They also, their scenarios previously had always been the shooting, was a person from outside. But I think what a lot of what they were and some of the other information, from other testimony was that it happened inside, particularly with that one that goes up the nose. That's a very difficult angle to get. You know what I mean? Boom. So I guess that we could stop at that chunk right there because that was a big segment before they go into a whole the next chunk. But we could just start there with the Walgreens employee, the 911 call, the recreation, the shooting scenario, and all that. Anybody have anything that they'd like to bring up thus far about that? Any ideas, thoughts, comments?
Hey, my name is Taylor. I'm not on camera right now, but I just started watching this. I usually don't tune into realities like that because it'd be hard for me, but I did just start watching, and I noticed that at the time he was okay enough to be honest with some type of reality about his being there in the first place. And it came off to me that I guess I wasn't born at that time. I'm born in 91. So I don't know. In my head, I don't know if I would have offered that information. But I guess with his comfort with knowing he was innocent, that's where that comfortability came from. And I thought that really stood out as far as the relationship that he may have had or experienced with the police at the time.
Right. So sis, give thanks for that. And I hope you continue watching and all that. I just got to tell you a little bit. The way that we've been doing it is that we've been going episode by episode. So now we are on episode 7, right? So right. So you ain't got there yet, but we've been doing it every night. You know what I mean?
So I might want to leave. So I might catch something I ain't see yet.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily leave. I mean, I don't know how you feel about spoilers or whatever. But I would just say that we just trying to maintain a focus on some of these issues. Some of it, goes back and are recurring themes throughout, the entire thing. So, I wouldn't say leave, but I would just say, we're gonna try to deal with very specific issues about the episode that we all, again watched tonight, which is episode 7, Black Irish.
Okay. I'm gonna head up because I ain't seen Black Irish yet. I don't like spoilers.
Oh, you don't like spoilers. All right, so damn, it's a shame to lose you because we don't want to lose you, sis. But
I'll be back. You ain't lost me. I'll be back when I'm caught up.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right. You guys have a good night.
All right. Well, peace.
Good night.
All right. Well, damn, I hate that we lost sis. But all right, so anybody else got any points on what we've chopped up thus far?
Yes, I would like to point out also how they said that Mulligan wouldn't trust anybody, but he left his door unlocked because, the window's only 3 inches and a quarter. You couldn't unlock the window unless if you had one of those, jacks to unlock the windows with, unlock the doors with. But I just found it interesting. He's sleeping at a Walgreens parking lot at 3 a.m. with his door unlocked, allegedly.
I think he had a reasonable level of comfort, based on the evidence of one, going to sleep. You know what I mean? You got to be pretty comfortable to go to sleep, out in the open anywhere. You know what I mean? I pulled over on the side of the highway and you know what I mean? Like at a rest stop and whatnot, you know what I mean? That's a sketchy situation. So you got to have a certain reasonable sense of comfort just to be willing, fall asleep. Secondly, another level of comfort is, let's also remember, he was getting oral sex every night, whatever, whenever he worked or whenever he wanted it or whatever. So that's a whole nother level of comfort, he wasn't worried about them people in Walgreens. He wasn't worried about who might be looking. He wasn't he was footloose and fancy free doing his own thing.
Also, he had a level of confidence because he was a cop and in a police car and in uniform.
Right.
People want to avoid them at all costs. So who's going to go to the car unless it is an emergency?
Well, the car was unmarked. I believe that was his personal vehicle. But yes, he was. Actually, was he in uniform? That's a good point. Was he in uniform?
Exactly.
Nah, he was.
We don't know if he was in uniform. We
It's,
don't know which way he was facing because they moved the body. We have no clue of anything. I don't know how anyone can make a sound judgment on this. Like, that's the part that really blows my mind.
But one thing I can say is that he is a scumbag, and everyone knew he was a scumbag. And the fact that he could sit there and be so comfortable regardless and just sit there in public
Yeah.
and just be like that is crazy to me.
well, they said he was on a private security detail. So I don't know if that was if that means he was working on the clock, or if he got hired by whatever management or landlord company that was in charge of the premises over there.
Oh,
I don't know
like completely outside. Like it wasn't even a detail that was assigned through BPD.
Right. Like somebody might have known him. It was like, hey, I own this property. One of my tenants is getting her, is got a problem overnight and paid, and it's a paid detail, and they paid him to be a security guard overnight. And he's making money, obviously overnight. And anybody who's worked the graveyard shift know that if you have the ability to go to sleep, because of what that is, that you're gonna do that. And see, that makes sense to me if it's a overnight private security detail. And he just happens to be a police officer. But they haven't specified whether or not he was on the books or not, which is very interesting.
Right. Anybody else got anything to add on this?
Just one last thing. It's just interesting that because he was known to be asleep, like everyone's assuming that this dude was asleep when this happened, but
Yep.
he was awake because obviously somebody was there. He was talking to them, and they're basing all of this on the driver's side part of the car, to fit their story. I don't know. This whole thing just blows my mind because it's just so obvious that, Sean and Terry had nothing to do with this. So it's blowing my mind.
Anybody else?
I kind of also, want to touch base what Brother Jamal Muhammad said about not knowing also if the taxpayers is paying for that detail and why, because I see that's a common occurrence that, police officer is working for private companies and in their police uniforms. Is that even constitutional?
Yeah, absolutely. That is. I mean, not for nothing. When you see cops, they might be at the hospital or construction sites or, whatever. That's a big deal. And that's like part of union negotiations and contracts and whatnot. Not for nothing too. Firefighters do details as well. Where they might, let's say, go on a building site and their detail is, kind of semi-security, but more so to oversee, let's say the installation of the fire systems or what. They have to have a person on site who has a certain level of expertise to do this, that, or the other. So yes, oftentimes there are a variety of civil servants who could get kind of farmed out, if you will, for details that go down as, once again, those are some of those, like when we looked at old boys finances, he has a base salary, that there's overtime, and then there's details. But then, as Brother Jamal put forth, you can have a detail where, if anybody here has ever done an event, they damn near force you to hire them, right? So like that's a detail. I'm doing an event in Franklin Park. They're like, oh, well, that's going to require 4 officers, and you have to pay each of them such and such, 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 and then they put boom. So that's a detail that goes through BPD. But if I knew some of my buddies who are now cops or whatever, and I'm like, yo, I'm having a private event. I want y'all to, you know, stand at the door and be security, and then now I'm paying them directly individually. You see what I'm saying? And that's so that's what Brother Jamal was referring to. We don't know the origin of that particular detail, but both do happen, and neither in and of itself is particularly slimy. But you know, you can put slime in anything.
I
Right, and
think
their training is as a police officer or a fireman. The security, the insurable part of the security contract is a lot easier for the person who is hiring them to get bonded. You know, if something goes wrong, well, he is a police officer, right? Or he's a retired police officer. It's easier to explain that. You know, which brings up another point. You know, how is was he performing any level of security if he was asleep? How you gonna, if I was his family, I would be, that would be something that I would be upset about too. Like, what type of where was it, where was the angle at for him to have this job? If he's working a full-time job during the day, and then he's putting his life on the line at night, so much so that he has to go to sleep in the car. You know what I'm saying? You never mind all of his left-handed business. It's like it's a very needed thing to kind of understand what are the details around why he was even there and what was going on in the first place.
Can I ask something? Why is it that they say he was asleep? Who said that he was asleep? The medical examiner?
The police. That was the
But
police
they're
report.
not doctors. It takes a doctor to say that you were asleep. He wasn't in bed where they could say, well, he was in bed asleep. He was on a detail. So what did the medical examiner's notes say?
I think what it was that there was the assumption that he would be asleep because that's what everyone knew that he did during that detail. He was assigned to that detail, I guess, on a regular basis. And the assumption was that he would be asleep anyway, because they knew that's what he did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then they need to look at his schedule, because how would anybody know what night he was going to be there if he's not the only one to do that detail?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that we have any way of of knowing that. We don't know if he was the only one. We don't know whatever. But if he's the guy, let's just say he just did weekends or whatever it is. You know what I mean? And and he's doing from 11. He's doing the 11 to 7 shift. Anybody who frequents the area at that time is gonna be, oh yeah, that's the cop who's always out there. You know what I mean? I don't think that that's necessarily too
important.
Mm-hmm. Not I don't want to say important, but I don't think that that's necessarily too hard to figure out. And then also too, let's also remember too, he was having people meet him there. You know what I mean? Yeah. Particularly, the young women who were servicing him. He was, meet me at Walgreens or whatever. And if he had them coming there, I'm willing to bet they ain't the only ones who, was meeting him up there for whatever reasons. And also too, let's also mind you, the testimony of the Armstead thing, where Armstead was like, we already been up there. He be sleeping in his car. We shook the vehicle. He doesn't wake up. Okay. And so, this was known, I think, even some of the other testimony, who was it too? They were like, they walked by and they saw him sleep in the vehicle, and then later on, you know what I mean, he's out of the die. So we don't know. And to touch back on the thing where Ari said about the driver's side or whatnot, one of the scenarios is that somebody shot him from inside. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, that's what they thought initially.
Right. You know what I mean? So none of it is definitive. It's just, it's
Speculations.
yeah, it's 6 or 7 different stories and different scenarios of how it could have went down and we've seen the outcome.
And that's because they moved the body. We don't know which way he was facing.
Right, exactly. True.
We have no clue.
Exactly, true. True. Yeah, and as we covered yesterday too, technically that is disturbing a crime scene, tampering with evidence, what I mean, moving a body. I mean, all of those types of things are like big deals, charges in a if me or you did it, those would be charges. You know what I mean? You moved the body. Why'd you move the body? You know what I'm saying? All like those would be charges. So
I have one question about that too. Like when detectives multiple arrive on a scene and then they go back to the station to do whatever reporting, do all of the detectives have to do a report or a singular lead detective write the report? Does a singular lead detective write the report? And I ask that because perhaps the description in which his body was found would be different if there were multiple reports.
well, I would think that even still, there's a level of court because even when they go write those reports, they're gonna be writing them like like EPMD, going back and forth. You know what I
Right,
mean?
but I'm just saying, sometimes there could be a little slip up. They think they have it all together. And then you look at Detective A's report and Detective B's report, and there's a difference. I just wanted to know if there was what's the protocol.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for that I do not know, and I would say it probably varies on a case by case basis because particularly in a thing like this, with a cop killing, a lot of the stuff goes out the window, and a lot of people are moving at light speed, and protocol does not always get followed, to the T, and
Right.
oftentimes that works to their advantage because then when questioned about it, they'll be like, "Yo, we was in the middle of, you know what I mean, this hurricane, and da 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 da." So
Okay.
I don't know, but that's a valid question.
Here's another one though. And in addition to that, remember there was a state police officer on scene as well. If a state police officer, all of this evidence that, is being pulled up is coming from BPD, would just the mere presence of that state trooper being on scene, does he have to write a report?
Probably, but I mean, his report would be, you know, uh, uh, like a supplementary report or something like that. I mean, he wasn't the responding officer. You know what I mean? He got there, after the fact. You know what I mean? So, yeah, he might write a report. And he said he knew the guy, and but that wouldn't be, uh, a primary report. All right, so
What's interesting too? Now that I think about it, is the dude from Walgreens didn't notice anything when he walked by, right?
right.
But he did when he came back. And then later on in this episode, when the private detective and the other guy that was helping him reenact the shooting said from the report that Mulligan's left hand was behind his head, like you would if you was trying to support your head if you was asleep. So my question is, how did he not notice it on the way, but did on the way back if his left hand was up behind his head? How can you see all of that? What's going on? Like, it's just too many unexplained details about this. And that call didn't come in until 10 minutes to 4 in the morning, which
Right.
is like a 30-minute window from the police timeline as to when everything happened.
Right.
Can I say something? As shady as this situation was, man, I don't even know. His head he could have been set up, and most people who got their head back here in the car was doing this, you know. Again, back to what Jamal was saying earlier, you know, oral sex. He was dealing with a lot of women. Could have been set up. With, like Ari said, this is crazy. It's all crazy.
All right. So we're moving on to the next segment here. So now, the next thing they show, you know, is basically, you know, the new house, you know, the new room and everything. And, you know, that's another little moment of light. And, you know, you get to see, you know, like, you know, starting over and all that. They probably did a little bit more of showing the house than I would have did. You know what I mean? I might have blurred a little bit of that out, but
Ooh, that's the same thing I said, Jamal. I'm like, wait a minute, that's like too much.
yeah, I felt like that. I mean, but I felt like that also too, driving the car with the license plate number visible and all this type of thing. And I'm like, I hope that's a rental. You know, but you know, I'm security minded like that. But anyway, I don't even want to dally on that. But in any event, boom. Then it goes to Dirty Dan Conley. And you know, the beginning of, you know, when he first now it comes out that he is not going to run for re-election, right? And this is where Rosemary is like, yo, I don't know who it's going to be, but you know, whoever is going to be the new DA needs to have a conversation with me. You know what I mean? And so now, you know, it's up in the air again. Folks don't know what's going to happen. The next thing they showed was the St. Patrick's Day parade. And that went into a whole kind of vignette that really showed kind of the nature of Boston and, you know, the heavy, you know, white presence here, and particularly the Irish presence. And, you know, and Rosemary talked about the Old Boys Network. You know, we also call it the Good Old Boys Network, right? And that is, in this particular case, because there's several of those networks. Some of those networks are Blue Bloods, the Yankees, right? The Wasps, right? Some of those networks are, let's say, Italian or whatever. But in this case, we're talking about the Irish Good Old Boy Network. And a lot of those networks too, they work in conjunction because, you know, certainly Irish and Italian have been able to work together in terms of, you know, construction and development and law enforcement and fire and everything else and so on and so forth. But there were certain cultural groups that were able to amass a power base and a stronghold in certain areas, as we know. So this Good Old Boy Network here is white, it's male, it's Irish, it's Catholic, right? And you know, I ain't got to tell y'all, most of y'all live here, so you know what it is. And you know, you had Dan Conley at the time, you know, as they showed the picture. You had Evans, and then you got Walsh, right?
Can I call them the trio of the fuck boys? Excuse me, I'm saying, but that's what they are, the Chicago Bulls of it.
Okay, sure. Now the only thing I would say, to be fair, because I strive to be fair, is the only one that I think is that Walsh walked into that situation. Okay, look,
that is true.
Right, Dan Conley is the cause of that situation and many others, or like the furtherer of that situation and many others, holding the torch tight. Evans, you know, he's sworn into that thing and he holds the torch tight.
Mal, wasn't his brother in his position right before him? The Evans?
Not right before him, but yeah, a couple commissioners
Okay.
before. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, Paul Evans, and then William or Billy Evans later. Yeah, we had a couple of commissioners in between that. And Walsh, being new to this, you know, only been in office for 7 years, you know, he's on the tail end of it. I wish Menino was still around, you know, but now too, remember now Menino, once again, breaks that Good Old Boys Network thing. That's what I'm talking about, because Menino was white, male, Italian, and Catholic. You see what I'm saying? So that would have changed that picture a little bit. But whatever. I mean, you know, it's all the same. And I think that nobody is breaking their back to, you know, speak out against it. You know what I mean? Or dismantle it. So, you know, I don't want to do too much of, you know.
Yeah, I'll give Welsh that, I guess. You get what I'm saying? I'm not giving him nothing, but you get what I'm trying to say. I'm not gonna put him with Danley and with Conley and Evans. That's a different level of this shit. So
That's what I'm saying. He just, yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
There is levels, I would say.
Right, and that's all I'm saying. Because I'm not trying to do nothing either. Just, you know, his timeline don't, you know, fit like that. Like those folks were culprits, you know, certainly involved.
Right. There were others that even in our skin complexion that was way worse. So but you go on. I'm sorry.
Exactly. Right. Okay. So so the Good Old Boys Network and blah blah blah. Okay. Now next thing Rosemary Scapicchio spoke about was the statements that Dan Conley was making at the time, which were, you know, we're confident we're gonna get a conviction and, you know, this type of thing and that. And it was interesting that she said, because his statements making like that to the public, that really is an intentional poisoning of the jury. You are intentionally trying to put a narrative out there to the general public to increase your chances that anybody who you may get already has a preconceived notion that you've already put out there. You know what I mean? He, you know, some of us spiritual people, you know, I always say, speak it into being. He was trying to do that on some evil shit. You know what I mean? He was trying to put that thing out there and make it happen. So we'll stop right there before we go to the next little portion. But if anybody has anything on that, just the whole, you know, the Dan Conley thing, and you know, this is where they begin interjecting the possibility of a new DA, the whole inflection of the Good Old Boys Network and the St. Patty Day, and, you know, the intentional poisoning of the jury pool. Anybody got anything on that thus far?
I have a whole lot to say, but I'm just waiting for which part where we start at. That's all.
Well, I mean, like, I'm trying to take it in chunks. So, you know, that little chunk right there was, you know, Dan Conley not running for re-election, making that announcement. You know, the whole, you know, injection now of the possibility that there's going to be a new, no, not even a possibility, the fact that there was going to be a new DA, whoever that is or whatnot. And then the whole thing about the Good Old Boys Network, St. Patty's Parade, and Dan Conley and some of his, you know, attempts to kind of stack the deck in his favor.
I feel like just to start off with the Dan Conley coming into the position, clearly he was coming in, he was giving up the position because he was trying to put the interim, which was Pappas. Am I saying his name right?
Yep, Pappas.
He was coming in, and I think it was obviously a plan for just to hold up for Sean Ellis. So obviously this was the biggest case that was going on. They probably didn't want to get that any steam. But when it came down to Greg Hennings running, and I forgot the white woman's name, and Cavallo and Rachel Rollins, I was very moved by Rachel Rollins' words, how she could carry that passion, authenticity of, you know, coming from our pain pretty much. And that's how it's coming off. And I thought the white woman was actually speaking some great, you know, some great stuff in those conversations.
So I was just gonna say, so hold tight on that, because you jumping ahead now to where we're gonna get really into the campaign. And so that's a little bit more, we just got a little bit more to go, and then we're gonna be right into that. We're gonna be right into that. Okay, so so then I'm gonna keep going in. So after I said what intentional poison in the jury pool, then that's when Scapicchio started talking about the timeline, right? 301, Sean bought the diapers, right? 305, Rosa Sanchez says she saw him crouched down by the side of the vehicle, right? 315, somebody else says they saw the small brown car by a red light, right? Speeding away or running a red light or whatever. 3:25, Rosa says she saw Sean and Terry at the payphone, right? At 3:30, the guy says he sees a brown VW Rabbit parked outside of his house. The police, of course, question him, whatever, because his timeline don't fit because it's 3:30. So then later on, they're like, hey, well, by chance, are your clocks set forward or anything? Oh, yeah. My clock is 10 minutes fast. So it really was 3:20. So that, they made that fit to the 3:20. And so this is this is now Rosemary and Sean is in her office and she got everything spread out and she's, showing him and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, wow. And she's like, bingo. See that wow you just gave me? That's exactly what I need the jury to do. That's exactly what we have to wrap this case in a way where we're presenting it, where the jury gets to that moment like, wow, boom. All right. So the next thing was the introduction of Reverend Rivers. So now this is going to be a whole good chunk here. We talked about it a little bit before in our introductory one, and it got away from us, blah, blah, blah. But okay. So Reverend Rivers now recounts his involvement, in this time or what have you, that after he got out of Harvard and seminary, what have you, that he and his wife made a point to settle in Four Corners. He made a point, the black section, North Dorchester, and, in the middle of 1988, which was, crack and everything else. But in the beginning, he was talking really good, I thought, you know what I mean? Speaking about just the environment and just that he had found out from working with some of the youth, just the level of criminality that was going on with the police department. Okay. Then, I think one of his things was, that was a little bit questionable, talking about some of the young people he worked with. They were no angels. So, we had two sets of criminals. We had the young men who was selling the drugs, and then we had the cops who was, taking the drugs and shaking them down and so on and so forth. So we had that. Please, whoever got the noise in the background, please mute that, please. And then they went, and then they, go into another scene, and all of a sudden it goes into the Revolutionary War reenactment. Right. After the Revolutionary War reenactment, then comes on Mark Scott. I don't know, for those who don't know Mark Scott, but Mark Scott is Eugene Rivers' right-hand man. I know that the only reason he got in that is because Eugene was like, hey, you got to put my man in it too. Because, he had no place in none of this. You know what I mean? As far as I know, he, only came to Boston as of recent. I don't know. He's just a person I ain't never seen in my life till recently. You know what I mean? So the fact that, he got in there, that was one of them things. But his point was to now attempt to give a little bit of history about the Irish. And I would think that actually too, some of the, not some, but, Irish people, I think, those that are intact with their own culture and their own history are probably going to be offended by both Rivers and Mark Scott's comments, which, dare I say, was at the very least a super oversimplification of Irish history, Irish culture, and the Irish people. Put it like this: if a white person had described Black people in such simplistic terms and such one-dimensional terms, I would be super offended. You know what I mean? So I have to, but like, I'll give you an example. So and this is them in their scholarly mode. Rivers said, well, the Irish, they love to fight. They needed somebody to hate. Now, can you imagine a white person saying that about Black? Them Black people, they love to fight. You see what I'm saying? So on the flip side, I just have to say that those type of comments are A, not helpful, and B, you can't stand on that fact because there's no, like, that's not a scientific statement. That's an emotional statement, but you can't really stand on that. So me generally, like, stuff like that doesn't hold muster. But so the Irish love to fight, right? As opposed to the English, the French, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Dutch, the Belgians, or like, Irish love to fight. And they love to drink too, as opposed to the English, the Belgians, the Spanish, the French, the the Vikings, But the Irish love to fight. They needed someone to hate. And blacks were an inexhaustible resource. Now, that part has a bit of truth in it, only because for anybody who's done any, science in terms of like, oh my God, social structures and whatnot.
Yeah, sociology.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
We were two groups of people at the bottom of the totem pole,
Correct,
pitted against each other because both of us were locked out of the power structure.
That's right.
Now, due to them being a group that could easily more assimilate into the larger structure, because after all, they still are white. So as the times went back, Italians were able to assimilate up into the culture. Irish were able to assimilate up into the culture. And, and it didn't work out, so much with Black people, Native Americans, so on and so forth, because we were so obviously different, right? So clearly Irish people and Black people in Boston have had some tensions. Certainly, no, in my opinion, no more than just regular old English folks or, all those other folks that I mentioned or what have you. The tensions have been exacerbated because particularly like in, the busing era and all this type of stuff and, blah, blah, blah. But don't be fooled to think that, the Irish are the Black man's number one enemy. That would be a miscalculation, right? Okay. Then the Reverend goes into why Black people lack power. And we talked about this a little bit before, but he said the reason that Black people have not been able to build power, and he identified as the specific reason that we have not had a Black mayor in Boston, is because this is primarily an Afro-Caribbean city, and the Afro-Caribbeans will not close ranks, and it would become a debate about which island is so-and-so from. Now, we talked about it before, but I say it again just because it bears it. That might be the most ignorant statement I've heard in a long time. It's divisive. It's just, once again, it doesn't bear out in facts, and it's just not digestible coming from our dear brother who was part of one of the most divisive initiatives to impact the Black community within the last 40 years, when he was given a certain level of influence with the 10-point coalition. And what that whole thing was set up to do was divide the grassroots organization from those that were, lack of a better phrase, in bed with the individuals running the city. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't be a part of that and then say that Black folks is divided based on Afro-Caribbean versus the those that have been born here, which, like, the line that separates those groups is so thin you can't even see it. Like, I don't know what he's talking about. Like, where did he, like, why would you even say that on camera? And I don't understand. Like, he's at a certain point, he's gonna have to explain that. Yeah, that was bad. That wasn't a glowing moment. It just, and you know what? The civilized world, when they look at it for nothing, just for his own thing, you sound stupid. You sound like you lack intellect and worldview. Thinking people around the world see that and they're like, I expect a statement like that to come from like Portia from like Real Housewives of Atlanta. You know what I mean? So, you know, something like that. I don't expect that to come from someone, you know what I mean? Like, and then once again, and even if you felt that once again,
don't say it.
You know, did you know you were being interviewed for Netflix?
Why'd you say that?
You know what I mean? Like, leave that part out.
Oh, for real.
One thing that threw me off is when he was talking to the police officer, he was like, my man, my man. I was like, damn, it was just like, oh my gosh, like, you know, like, and he's working in the hood, like he's working with my brother. So I'm like, damn, how many my brothers he done impacted? But I'm gonna get it, yeah.
Hey, look, you keep jumping ahead because look, we right here. Look, right here is Baker House meeting. Rivers Branch. Listen, listen. My man. And not for nothing too, that dude will get there. But if I'm correct, the dude who he dapped up like that, I believe is Captain Conley, who was the one who beat his wife. The one who was recently in the domestic violence. I believe that's Captain Conley. But all right, so let's keep it going. The next thing they show is, you know, the DA rally, the forum from Hibernian Hall, right? Sponsored by the ACLU. And outside, and this is funny because, you know, folks who've been involved in these events, you know, it's like going to a football game. And outside, you know, the folks who are for the Chicago Bears are on that side, and the folks who are for the Patriots are on this side. And so when you're going to these rallies, it's like, you know, go Rachel, go Rachel. You know, go Shannon, whatever it was, you know, go Evandro, whatever. And it just, it's so funny to me how people get so worked up about this stuff and how quick you will slap a bumper sticker and mess up a good paint job on your car and slap a bumper sticker on, or so quick to put on a t-shirt or whatever, or somebody you really don't know or nothing like that. And, you know, and get signs. And some folks in the hood was almost ready to beef. You know, it becomes like what was the thing? The Hatfields and the McCoys or the Crips and the Bloods or whatever. All of a sudden, every election season, you know, folks who done known each other for years or whatever, all of a sudden it can become so, and I'm just not invested in it that much. You know what I mean? But it was, I think, important to see, because it's a timestamp about who was on whose side at that time. Because see, now a lot of people have a revisionist history and want to, you know, oh, you know, I was down with Rachel from day one. No, you weren't. And it's on video. You know what I mean?
I don't even think it's I don't think these people even doing it just for the clout. I think that's a big part of it. Don't get me wrong. But my financial promises, I think some of these campaign people be promising these people some money. So that's why they're going out there starving and dying for this stuff. Like, once they win, we're going to get a shot, we're going to get a seat, and we're going to be making money all year. So, you know, they promising a whole livelihood.
Oh, absolutely. But a lot of these people, you know, have worked on multiple campaigns by now and ain't never got nothing. All they got is a closet full of t-shirts. Okay. So, you know, and not for nothing too, you know, I could speak to that a little bit. I'll try to be quick on this. Look, every election cycle, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the term carpetbaggers, right? But, you know, people from elsewhere who come in, you know, they promise you, you know, whatever, and then they roll out, whatever. Okay. So, you know, the hood ain't never seen Elizabeth Warren, Ed Markey, Joe Kennedy, what was the dude before that? Scott Brown, who drove the truck. All of these, you know, people, when they run for senator or Congress or whatever, you know, they know what time it is. They know they need our vote. And they, you know, and also too, let's not big ourselves up like that. They don't really need our vote. You know what I mean? They can win without it, but you know, it helps. Okay. So, you know, they put up offices in our community or whatnot. And when they roll through, they hire folks. But here's the joke, y'all. You know, they're not hiring folks for like high level, strategy and consulting jobs. They're hiring people to, hey, you pass out the flyers. Here, you pass out bumper stickers. You give out T-shirts. You hold up signs. It's grunt work. And it's a lot of work, you know, used to be $10, $15. Now it might be 15, 20, whatever, whatever, but it's grunt work. And none of these people are taking any, I won't say none. Most of these people are not taking any issues in our community seriously at all, because, you know, if you notice, they're not having policy conversations. You know, it's you know, for them, it's, you know, they are asking not what they could do for the Black community, but asking what the Black community could do for them. You dig? And that's that whole mentality and whatnot. But okay, so let's go on. This is the beginning where Rachel begins, you know, showing her kind of, you know, assertiveness, her dominance, standing out from the rest of the folks who basically, you know, her intensity was just different. You know what I mean? So this was the first time where we begin to see that, and that's the time where she checked the panel on the whole use of the term threaten. You know, you don't have to, you know, you don't have to say, hey, I'm threatening you in order for it to be a threat. And that kind of showed a whole another level.
See, and that's an important point, right? Because the just the layman voter who's just you know, really trying to listen to a platform to decide who they're going to vote for, you know, may not be exposed to that level of nuance if, you know, somebody like Rachel, like, don't say it. Like, I don't have to say threaten for you to feel threatened if I subpoena you and you got children and you don't want to come. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that was very insightful for her. Like, and that, you know, that really showed a level of commitment to her platform and to the position. I mean, she completely distinguished herself from the crowd when she made that statement.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would like to add that the other lady was all right too. The white woman, I have no idea who she was, but
Shannon McCullough.
Yeah, she was all right, you know what I mean? And what's his name? Cavallo didn't say nothing, and none of the Netflix. I didn't see him even say a word. But I just wanted to say that I felt like Rachel did stand out, and this is, I don't want to jump the gun, but I just want to say that I guess when you carry that passion as an elective or anybody, that shit will really bring you in. You get what I'm saying? And that's all I'm gonna say.
And next time, don't talk with your mouth full.
Sorry, sir.
So now from that, you know, they cut off and they go off into the next vignette where they, you know, this is where Rosemary now is starting to bang in on like the reward money, right? So like this reward money is like, where's this coming from? Where is this at? Did it come through the union? Did it come from the benevolent society? You know, so on and so forth. And let me just say this too. Let me talk about the bag. Yo, there are so many ways to hide a bag. So let's say I'm running for office or it's a foundation. I mean, like, do you know how many little different things that the Boston police have set up like for like money things? So for instance, there's a thing called the Boston Police Foundation. Most people don't even know about this thing exists. But they do big shindigs every year, and it's like, you know, Bill Belichick and like used to be Tom Brady there and whatever, the Red Sox. They raise like 13 million in a night type of action. You know what I mean? Big type of thing. And it's their sweet honeypot. And if you go to the website, it literally will say this foundation is in order to raise money and get funds for all the weapons and trainings that are outside of the BPD budget. So meaning BPD says we can't have a submarine. Boston Police Foundation could say submarine.
Right.
They have their own money to buy what they want. Okay. And so, you know, little things like this is where, you know, reward money and this and that, this little, once again, a benevolent society. You know, for folks who know racism, we had the KKK, right? But then you had something that sounded really harmless, you know, the Good Citizen Society, right? The White Citizens Council. Sounds harmless. Same thing. And if you look around at all these little fraternal organizations, you know, the Knights of Columbus and the, you know, the Lions and the this and the that, the Rotary Clubs and the whoop-de-whoops and the wham-de-wham, the Sons of Italy and the da-da-da-da. All of them things can raise money like this. Veterans of foreign wars, all these posts and all that can raise money like that for something that they believe in. Okay, so a situation like a cop getting killed, at that time, they could have had, you know, $250,000 in reward money, you know, overnight, because it would have been pouring in from everywhere.
It's just wild, Jay, that, I mean, as you're saying this, it's just crazy. It's like, yeah, they have the books when they're getting the bag, but then, oh, where are the books now? All of a sudden, they can't remember how they spent it, how they gave it out, who spent it, where it came from. But it's crazy to me because it's like they definitely stood next to a poster that says $25,000, boom. And it's like, you know, it was just kind of ludicrous to me that they think that people are going to forget. You know what I mean? Like, were you not standing by that poster in the press conference? Like, we didn't see, you know what I mean? Oh, there's no receipts. Like, where do they do that in any organization? You know what I mean? Where amounts in the 20s and tens and thousands of dollars are just not recorded anywhere by anyone. And then on top of that, like, if there was wrongdoing in the keeping of those books, would it not be incumbent on, I mean, the DA's office and such folks to hold them accountable on that end? You know, it's like they would be the ones who would say, hey, your books is funny. You know what I mean? We're going to look into misappropriation of funds or whatever.
Yeah, particularly if those entities that would have been collecting reward money or whatever, nonprofit and foundations and all that, whoever has the noise going on in the background, if you could mute your thing, that'd be great and helpful.
I was gonna say too about the reward, like usually when they are giving rewards, like the money is not that much. And it seemed like the money that they were offering here was a little bit excessive.
Yeah, I can't tell who that is.
With the feedback, it's like somebody's phone is on.
Okay, it might be this. Hold on, let me see. No.
It sounds like somebody may have Facebook Live on in the background.
Yeah, it's two thing I go on. Who's on the iPhone?
That's me. Okay.
So I'm just gonna mute you. All right. I don't know if it's you, but I'm gonna just mute you. And if you want to talk, you just unmute yourself. It's okay. All right. So okay, boom. So the reward money, all that, but all right. Then the next thing that's really introduced is, you know, Darth Henning. You know, the young Sith apprentice to Darth Conley. You know what I mean?
You're stupid.
So Greg Henning, with his little old frumpy dumpy self, right?
They have the worst clothes for it.
Yo, oh my God! Oh, look, cause ain't nothing that Marshalls fit him. Everything look awkward. He looked like his mama dressed him for the first day of school. It was horrible.
I'm gonna actually go against that a little bit. I'm gonna say this. Even though he did look horrible, he did look doofy, but I would say he definitely they are good at playing a role. I'm not gonna lie, he really did play a role where he looked like a normal guy for a little bit. You get what I'm saying? I must admit.
Yeah, he was born for that role.
Yeah.
He was born for that role. He was the heir apparent, you know, Dan Conley, you know, and not for nothing too, watch this, because okay, now we're gonna get into little subliminals the white people be throwing around.
Yeah, for sure.
Dan Conley says, well, you know, Greg Henning, he's certainly the most qualified. He's the most intelligent by far. And the most, I was like, what type of racist type of shit is that? The most intelligent by far. I mean,
Right.
listen, not for nothing. I'm not a DA. I don't have a law degree or nothing. I guarantee y'all, Greg Henning could not beat me in a debate.
He's like a C student.
Exactly.
He's like a C
At best.
student. Yeah.
At best.
And that's a gift.
Yeah.
That's a gift.
Right. Right. So it was really funny, but it really speaks to, you know, not just white privilege, but white male privilege, where mediocrity can get an injection to look like excellence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if we weren't derailed, I mean, if that thing didn't get derailed, that would have been RDA. You know what I mean? That would have been RDA. If there was no Rachel in that game, he was going to steamroll over everybody else. I believe.
And the crazy part is, what makes your point even more, stand out even more, is how hard that the black and brown candidates got to work and how good they got to be.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Just to have a shot. Like, I'm looking at him and I'm looking at the DA, right? That was arguing the case at the SJC and in front of Judge Ball. You remember Big Daddy Kane's album, How You Get a Record Deal? Like, that song, when I'm looking and I'm seeing this, that song was playing in the back of my head. Like, yo, how did you get a record deal?
How he get a law degree?
No, I'm not taking nothing away from him. But what I'm saying is, it's like, we be clawing and scratching and scraping, and they walk in there, you know what I mean? I don't want to be disrespectful, but it's just ridiculous. At a certain point, it's ridiculous. Like, real qualified people that's smart, passionate about they stuff and know what they're talking about and will go the extra mile, and it ain't about the money, don't even get a shot.
Right.
Hand pick somebody that can't even, it's like a candle in the sun. Like, what are you talking about?
I agree with all of y'all. But I was thinking, what do you think the point was to spotlight him like that? I mean, is his political career gonna continue? You know what I'm saying? I mean, because it's like, why show him like that? Because it was like homeboy was just talking said earlier, the other guys didn't even get any time on film.
I think the filmmaker just used that to really depict what was going on at the time. He was, once again, he was the heir apparent. Right. So, you know, this was the one that the establishment, the previous DA had all put their money on. This was the white establishment, law enforcement, lock them up, law and order candidate. And so they had to put him in there. Now, Avandro at that time.
And significantly, I mean, I'm pretty sure it was clear that if he got in, he was going to continue to prosecute Sean's case.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they highlighted him to set up that upset. That's what that was.
Right. You need some contrast and whatnot. But to the point about Avandro, I want to say this: like, during the debate, when those debates were going on, he was just as verbal as other people.
Yeah, he was.
He definitely, had his motion. Now, I will say, for me, he was not my candidate. I was not a fan of his performance. I was underwhelmed all the time. Mm-hmm. So I will say that, me speaking for me, that I was glad that they didn't use any sound bites or statements from him. And I wish that they would have done, once again, I wish that they would have cut that statement from Eugene Rivers out. And I didn't need to hear anything from Avandro. There's a couple of other people I could have left on the cutting room floor. If you understand what I'm saying?
I mean, I think that speaks to, like, people not really knowing who the better players are, so they just, like, latch on to someone. Like, for me, having worked with Gene Rivers in the past, like it was useless to have him in there because to me he's a charlatan, and it's like for anything that he's saying, it's like disingenuous, you know. But I feel like there was a lot of people in there that I don't know, either they just didn't know other people to go to, or they wanted to project a certain image.
Well,
I'm gonna write a letter
with the documentary because I felt at times he was trying to show the bumbling fools that are our law enforcement system here, but also kind of drumming up a little sympathy. So I struggled with that because I was trying to be like, what voice are you really trying to tell this in? Because I felt like every scene would undermine, you know, they'd bring up a good point and the next scene would undermine it, to me.
I think it was a bit of a ping pong back and forth, and I believe that the filmmaker did that intentionally to kind of keep the pendulum and the tension going and the thing and whatnot up, you know, roller coaster, a little roller coaster. But not for nothing though, you know, all this talk, I'm gonna reach out to him on Twitter or something, see if he'll give me the film, let me re-edit it, make a hater's cut.
Well, I also think too there was some folks in there who were definitely not from Boston who were involved in the editing process, because I noticed like Jamaica Plains, which is just, you know, that's not any of us would have caught, you know. So it's like I think there was definitely, not to say in like the larger decisions, I think that's something where I'll give them a little bit of credit for, I think like you said, Jamal, trying to keep the story compelling and show both sides. But I think there was an element of, we know that if there was more Boston involvement, we could have had a better sort of curation of the Boston people who spoke.
Right. All right, so now let me move on to the next thing. One thing too, this is now when they get into the point where now Philip Martin. Do y'all know Philip Martin?
Yes, from WGBH, I believe.
Absolutely. So Philip Martin is a great guy, seasoned journalist. He's a real cool cat. You know, and just a real, like, you know, real professional journalist, a super gentleman and all that. I really like him. One of the few, because, you know, we don't have many black male voices in media in Boston. He's one of the few. He's, I think his actual title is the senior investigative reporter from WGBH. But at this point now, he started, you know, from the broad, it was almost like he damn near started narrating the doggone thing for a good clip there. You know, his voice became the voice kind of behind, you know, a lot of the stuff that was going just based on the coverage and whatnot, which was great too, because he got one of them good voices as well. And, you know, so I just wanted to say shout out to him because he's one of those journalists who does journalistic excellence. You know what I mean? Boom. Then also too, they show our brother Rasan Hall. Yep. Many of y'all may know from the ACLU. His exact title, I believe, he is the director of the racial justice. I don't know if it's division or whatever, but the racial justice program of the ACLU. He's the director of that. And he did his thing, and you know, in speaking about it and whatnot. You know, Rasan is a good dude as well. You know, his father was is David Hall, who was a member of the first co-op board, community ombudsman oversight panel, which gave some of the first recommendations about the police. So Rasan is a good dude. I've known him for a long time. So he gave a good narrative in there too, his monologue and whatnot. And if y'all know Rasan, you could make fun of him like I did, because he be making some funny faces while he drive and talk. All right. The next thing was,
I'm gonna tell him you didn't describe him as a cool dude. You should have.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah. Rasan's a cool cat too. Rasan's a cool cat. Right. Hey, not for nothing too. I be cracking on him too, because a lot of time he be looking like you. He be rocking a bow tie like y'all, brother.
Hey man, hey, he hold his own too.
Stay sharp. Yeah, you know, not for nothing too. Speaking of, not just okay. Look, this is, you know, a little digression, but it all makes sense. I am pleased as punch right now of some of the minds that we have around. We got a lot of dummies, right? But let us rejoice that we got a lot of geniuses. And in the legal field, the fact of Rachel being the DA, whether folks agree with her all the time or not, whatever, nobody can call her a dummy. You know what I'm saying? This is a woman who is thinking and, you know, is thoughtful about the process and whether she makes a decision that you end up not agreeing with. I could just tell you that she didn't just willy-nilly come to that decision. She thought about it, she chopped it up, and boom, boom, boom. So
she's way too mindful and strategic.
That's what I'm saying. And so, and for me, after dealing with dummies for decades, it's just refreshing to have a person like that. Same thing with Rasan, another as a black man in the legal thing. So, you know, boom, boom. So now we got Rachel, we got Rasan, and then Tanisha is another one. Tanisha Sullivan from the NAACP. So right now, too, we got a kick butt squad, and then Not for Nothing too. If y'all don't know Yvonne Madrigal Espinosa from Jesus, they switched their name. Now it's Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, I think.
Right?
He be kicking behind and taking names too. So like we have a cadre of like legal folks who are good people, thinking people, strategic people, and have legal minds. And I don't think we've ever been this poised to slay the dragon than we've ever been before. Now
and Jamal, they need to be protected and supported.
Yeah,
absolutely, sure. Absolutely. And not for nothing, hey, you said supported and protected. Hey, check this out too. They also need to be replicated and duplicated. So we got to find who else is out there, you know what I mean, where we can find to begin to run in these other areas and establish these other things. And, you know, because next time I talk to Rachel, I might ask her something weird, like for a toenail clipping, and say, look, if we can't find another one of you, then damn it, maybe we can clone one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, but
hey, Jamal, it's crucial. It's crucial that you brought this up, because I think it's something that needs to be spotlighted, because some people don't know that these people even exist.
Right.
And I mean, for some of it is their own. They haven't looked, but I mean, it's real good to know that there are people like this out there, and they should be spotlighted.
And that protection piece is very important, because they're very, you know, they're fighters. So they're, you know, they don't like cow down like some of the old echelon, but it also puts them in the spotlight to be messed with. And to have things, you know, happen as we've seen happen to other legislators and people that, you know, were railroaded and jailed and all kinds of things. So getting them out there and getting people to know what they're doing and how strong they are will help, I think, to make that protection a reality. Because it seems like when we get Black people in power, sometimes there's a lot of people that want to take them down.
I got something to say about all of that, and I hope I'm not trying to be distasteful, but I love my people. I'm that's my whole agenda is recovering my people. That's it. I don't care about really much else, and I only care about creating my own democracy and everything. But when it comes down to it, I just feel like there has to be the right people. And like Maul said, I'm very grateful for the intellects. You get what I'm saying? I'm very grateful, but the agenda has to be about our people, and the agenda can't be compromised. And I feel like I hope I'm not jumping the gun, but I cried. I punched the wall and everything when I seen some parts of the show. It is like I don't think that everybody should be in that position and should be leading our people, because they could be leading us into destruction. You get what I'm saying? Even worse than the oppressors were. So I'm sorry. I disagree. I'm only rooting for the people, keeping it real with the real. And if they're not, their agenda is not about strictly our people, then I'm not for it. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. We talking the same language. We talking the same language.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
if I could chime in here, peace family, just getting in. It's been a real busy day, several events, and just got off another Zoom. But to the conversation that we're having right now with regards to the power team that you just mentioned, those folks that are in power right now, that are fighting the fight, that's great, and I agree, man. We gotta duplicate them, right? We gotta replicate them. But the part I want to add is that don't forget, we can't forget the climate that made, you know what I'm saying, someone like a Rachel Rawlings possible. And there was a lot of work that was going on around education with regards to the criminal justice reform. There was a lot of work that was going on for a lot of years. I know one of the things that I was involved with was, under the banner of the Ministry of Justice, we was in collaboration with the Center for Church and Prisons, and we was hosting yearly events on criminal justice reform. We brought in Michelle Alexander in a couple of times, and a few others, having major forums like at BU and other places, which was really just geared and designed to educate people about the scope and the depth of the problem. Because most people, particularly at that time, and then I think that there's still a lot of people today that may not fully understand the scope of the problem and the depth of the problem. And so obviously this documentary is educating a lot of people, right? We're seeing some things that might have been, urban legends and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? But now to see it, but it still doesn't really go all the way. It still doesn't go to the depth of the problem. So I'm saying, as we're recognizing those elected officials and those people that are now coming into power, that there's a lot of work that went on to kind of cultivate the electorate, the masses, to be receptive to that. And I think that kind of work, we have to keep that kind of work going. Forums and different things, even like this forum right here is serving that purpose. But we have to have public forums where we having the conversation about the problem of the criminal justice reform, mass incarceration from top to bottom, because we have to educate the electorate so that when we have another candidate that may be, may seem radical, or to others, but to us it's someone that we would say she about it, right? But in order for the electorate to really support and back such candidate, there has to be an education. There has to be, you know what I'm saying, a paradigm shift in their thinking. And that's the type of work that I think we have to pay attention to as well, as we're trying to duplicate these efforts.
Yeah, Jamal, he talking about you.
Yes,
Yo,
sir.
not for nothing, one thing that COVID has done is, of course, it is diminished our capacity to really hit the streets the way that a lot of us used to, and certainly to do forums. One of the best worst things that happened to me in my activism life recently was when they started redoing the Dudley Library, because that was my spit out. It's free, it was huge and all that, but I knew it was in sore need of repair, so I was happy that they were finally investing some money into it. But I was like, damn, how long is it gonna be closed? So now of course COVID doesn't happen, and you still, because Hibernian Hall costs money to do, but now ain't nobody doing it. Now the good news is, of course, via this Zoom thing and everything else, all these other mechanisms that people are using, we still have the ability to organize. But as we can see from events like this and whatnot, we have to all do better in terms of like, the beautiful thing was the event that we watched the other night with the Innocence Project, where Brother Sean was on and all that. So looking at their live feed, when I was seeing, they had like 350 people on. You know what I mean?
It was dope.
Yeah. I actually too, I got to hit Sean up, or if y'all know, if they have the video now that it's done, if that video was up somewhere, if it was just live and now you can't see it no more. Because remember, we didn't get to see the second part, which was when they went into the public discussion, and I would like to actually see that too, and post it in the page and all that. But in any event, yes, we got to do better. We got to continue. And once again, all of us on here, I think, once again, we're all linked. Most of us were already linked anyway, but now we can, sorry. Oh no. But now,
messenger.
yeah, that's
That's
me.
usually the booty call line. What's up? What's up?
No, gosh, if only I was so lucky. It's actually my dude I need to do some work with. But yeah, I wish. But okay. So
one of the things. Oh, I was just thinking back to the movie. You just brought it up to me when you were mentioning Sean's name. Is like, how do we connect with those folks and really get them involved in a way that we can mobilize some of the things that, like Brother Randy was saying, the education, because just in thinking about like transitioning to society and the mental health aspects and all of that, it's like so many layers that, we need more than these 4 strong core people. And I feel like there's probably a lot of scholarly people that really know from experience that we could be tapping to forge as leaders. Why not? If this dude could be president, why can't we take a former drug dealer from the street and make, you know what I mean, and help and propel that, who changed their life? Why not? We do it all the time.
Well, clearly the reason we don't have a black mayor is because all them damn Afro-Caribbeans.
Oh yeah, that just was like, what the hell is that? But I mean,
yo, he ain't gonna be
just
safe.
reminded me of Skip Gates the whole time. Like looking at him, he looks like Skip Gates. It's like every time you talk, you have to put the Harvard in it. Like we know, Gene, we know you went to Harvard. We don't care. Some people went to Howard. Some people went to Hard Knocks. So
Yeah,
what?
say that. Come on.
And not for nothing too. I went to Harvard in the 90s too, but it was Harvard Street, and I went there to cop my weed.
That's what I'm saying. Yo.
Listen. Hey, and let's go on and keeping it on a light note, because actually the next scene was then Rosemary Scapicchio's house, and her and the family and all that, getting the wine. And not for nothing, I want to ask Sean.
Her mom was drunk.
Mom's drunk, right? And riled up. And not for nothing, I'm gonna ask Sean though too, because look, I want to get Rosemary Mama meatball recipe. That meatball looked like a spicy meatball. You know what I'm saying? Look, I might want to get them pasta recipes. But the family dinner and the moms was there, and strong opinions and whatnot. Now, to me, I never know, because I don't know if these people would have these strong feelings, of course, if their daughter, their sister wasn't, this lawyer who's involved in this. But of course, I don't know if they're rooting for justice for Black people, or they are rooting for, their daughter, their family, who like, oh, that's who you're going up against. Get them, girl. We hope you win. I don't know if they, I couldn't get a sense of that. I hope they are, but I don't know. And these are the types of things where,
there's a large Black Italian community in Boston. Maybe they're tied to it. You know what I mean? They could be aware.
Well, not for nothing, I don't even know if she's Italian, because the name Scapicchio comes from her marriage. I thought
I heard her say she was Italian, but maybe not. Maybe she's Irish.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I know she's a Catholic girl for sure.
Yeah, I could have misheard it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think she was just doing her job. I think this was a huge case for her. And I don't like
arrested, I want her my lawyer.
Right. I don't like Dan Conley at all, but I do agree with a lawyer's a lawyer. You know what I mean? This is a huge case for her. Of course, she's gonna take it. I think that I do appreciate the passion she brought to this case, though, of course. But I think even her family members, everybody who's involved, looks at it as a win. They don't look at it as a Black male being, going through the system in the way they said it.
Not for nothing too, Crystal. Rosemary also represents the Asian dude that killed Kareem.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I rooted for her with Sean Ellis. I rooted for her with Sean Drumgold.
Yeah.
And I hope she falls down a flight of stairs when it comes to representing my dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's tough. But all right, so okay, so then after the dinner thing, she gets to she speaks to the attorneys. I don't even know what the hell I wrote there, but she speaks to the other attorneys. Okay, now she begins tracing the witness payments, trying to really find out about that reward money. She drills down deep. That's when she finds out Victor Brown got 9,000 and Rosa apparently got 15K. Still don't know who paid or whatever. Boom. Then they have the hearing. Okay, or now they're going to have a hearing, right? Then the next thing they show is the sheriff's department DA forum. See, they keep doing these things and then they keep showing these DA forums. So now they show the DA forum that Sheriff Steve Tompkins did at South Bay, right? And not for nothing too, I gotta throw this in there. I was disappointed with Sheriff Tompkins, who I like and but I was disappointed at the time because he was supporting Shannon McCullough, whatever her name is, the chick from Roca. So he was supporting her. So I kind of felt that it was kind of weird for him to be doing a forum, even though it looked like a good intent to give an opportunity for folks who are actually locked up in South Bay to have an opportunity to interact with the the future potential DA or whatever. So, but I just thought it was a little bit slimy because he was had already endorsed Shannon. So
yeah, it brings into question his objectivity. You know what I mean? He couldn't be objective if you already know who you're going for.
Now to that point though, it seems like it was a pretty open thing because it's not like you could stack the deck. It's a forum, it's a panel. So, folks are gonna ask questions and So he might have wanted his homegirl to look and come out the victor, but not for nothing, Rachel just did what she does and it doesn't matter. So she shut it down.
Shout out to Rachel. She knocked every one of those out the box. Like she was batting 100 in those debates that they showed on there.
Were you there that day in Suffolk?
No, I wasn't there at South Bay. No.
Okay. Now the only thing too that stuck out, well, not the only thing, but one of the things that stuck out there is her, not attempting, but what she did was make a real human connection, right? By speaking about her own situation with her younger brother, who also got hemmed up and bagged and got sentenced. You know what I mean? And she's like, basically, me being at this forum, this ain't the first time I've been here. You know what I mean? I've been here for visits. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that, that was a whole different thing. One of the things that Tompkins said during it, when he opened it up too, he was like, how is it that 65% of our population is Black and Latino, right? And yet 18% of the population of Massachusetts, 18% of the general, or maybe it's Suffolk County he was talking about, but whatever, 18% of the overall population, but yet 65% of those in jail. So those are the type of, when we talk about disparities, those are the type of numbers that top it off. So I guess, okay, but no, we'll keep going a little bit, particularly because we're getting later. Then they flash forward and they do the Memphis Innocence Project, and they was marching in Memphis and all that, and you could see Sean down there, marching in the crowd, justice. When do we want it now? And then Rosemary made the comment that she felt as though that his involvement with the New England Innocent Project was actually like empowering him, right? Yeah. Because all those years and that time and that voice that was taken away when you feel like you can't do nothing about nothing, and now that you out and free and then get active on the same issue that you was afflicted by, it's healing, it's empowering. What I mean?
On that note, Jamal, you make me think about something that I didn't cross my mind to just now. Is it's definitely therapeutic for Sean, because he actually was wrongfully convicted. So he's, you know, he's the same as all the other folks in the Innocence Project. The only difference is that he was really not represented by the Innocence Project, and they have really not declared him to be innocent. So the thought that, and you listening to just now, maybe the Innocence Project should probably get behind this situation now still to fully exonerate him. Maybe that's something that they could probably get behind as well, because
Because
that's
he could
we
still
still
be tried again, right? Because he wasn't acquitted, they just dismissed it. So if they
missed
said
it.
they found evidence, he could be tried again, right?
Yeah, there's no statute of limitations on
Yeah,
murder.
if there's new evidence, that's how you would open it again.
Yeah. So
He can't be found. He just can't be found guilty of the same crime twice. No double jeopardy.
If you're acquitted, but that's why I don't know. I wonder, that was a question that I had because they dismissed it. If someone did want to do something or whatever, or oh wow, we found some evidence now. New evidence could make a new trial. I believe if he was acquitted, no, the jeopardy is attached.
And not for nothing, you absolutely right, brother Randy, because one of the little, like, the projects that the New England Innocent Project does, little subdivision or whatever, is the exonerees. So you'll always hear them talk about the exonerees,
right,
but he ain't exonerated.
Right.
So yeah.
All I have to say is wow, because I'm over here bigging them up this whole time in my head since I watched this, and I didn't even know that. Yeah, wow.
And not for nothing too, shout out to the New England Innocence Project for all the work that they do. But at the same time too, that is not quick work. That work is slow like molasses in the winter, right? And two, there are many that they miss. For every one case that they take, there's 5 cases that they turn down. You see, and it's the same with regular lawyers too. And even like that's what Rosemary was saying. She took this case because it was a good case and she felt like she could win it or whatnot. But like that ain't the only letter she got, and she did. She's turning folks down left and right. So these cases are out there, and it's it's a big damn deal. And God bless those folks who do whatever they can do, however they can, and if they get a win, God bless them. But many of those people are backed up, backlogged, overworked, understaffed, underpaid. And it's this is one of the most this is one of the biggest injustices we have in our society, is that in a place like America, wave your flag and all this type of stuff, Lady Liberty and all this, that people could actually be in prison for things that they did not do. Look, hey, mistakes happen. Look, but if you go to jail for a crime you did not commit, if you're there for more than 60 or 90 days, that's a big failure on society's part, because that should be able to be quickly cleared up. Nobody should be doing no years and years and years. Like I said, mistakes happen. So they might get the wrong person or whatever. But once you like, nah, man, it wasn't me. Here, take my blood, take my DNA. Nope, I was with my Aunt Shirley, this, that, the other. Once all that happens, they should be able to quit, and they should never shut their ears to evidence to the contrary. They should openly solicit it, and it don't matter if it happened yesterday or 30 years ago. They should open up everything. Everything where there's a question, they should why not take another look? Why not?
You're talking about we need total and comprehensive criminal justice reform. You know what I'm saying? Especially knowing and understanding the racial animus that exists, the racial disparities that exist in the criminal justice system. And this is what I mean by some of the education that we was involved with doing, like some simple things like America, only has like 5% of the world's population, but incarcerates 25% of those that in prison in the whole world. You know what I'm saying? 25% of the entire world's in prison population is in America. You know what I'm saying? Then you look at, just the barbaric way that our prison systems are ran. In some countries, like most countries, there's no such thing as life without the possibility of parole. You know what I'm saying? Like even here in this country, Massachusetts is one of only a few states that actually has life without the possibility of parole. But if you grew up here, we just think it's normal. That's just what it is. That is so like, arcane, so barbaric, that there's no, they call them Department of Correction, but there's no correction. There's no correction taking place there. It's not designed for correction, it's designed for punishment. So I think that, what you're saying with so much disparities and knowing what we know and knowing how corrupt the police department is and knowing how corrupt the whole system is, then we should be, pushing for total criminal justice reform, so that we can start to mitigate some of these realities.
Absolutely.
Just to piggyback on that, and to Jay's point, I mean,
hey, brother, you can't piggyback on a Muslim.
Fair to say, fair to say.
Dovetail, camelback, something else, fishback.
Anything. To follow up on that wonderful point, and to yours earlier, sir, he didn't even go to his first trial for years, and that's a reality that we are far too acceptable with and used to. The fact that it takes years to even get your initial trial or your initial hearings, let alone the acquittal, or the dismissal of the the decision to not proceed with a fourth retrial.
Right.
Perfect. Because this is the next chunk we going into. All right, boom. This is where now the next thing is. This is where Rosemary is like, yo, listen, I'm just a messenger, but I gotta let you know they offered a deal, and the deal was that they were gonna do him the favor of giving him time served, and all he had to do was say, "You're guilty."
Right.
Right. Right. Little detail.
What a favor.
Yeah.
Right.
They're a swell bunch, those people. Swell bunch. So of course, now not for nothing. I'm not even gonna say of course, because somebody else might have said, you know what? Give me that. Let me get gone. Whatever. I just don't want to deal with y'all no more. Whatever. But Sean,
Terry did.
Exactly.
Terry did that.
Well, and not for nothing, and for him going out, which we'll get to too with that, because that's actually coming up. For him, a condition of his thing to get out was to say Sean was the shooter. All right, but we'll get there in 2 seconds. But Sean, the type of man he is, says, "Nah, I'm not taking that deal." Now that's a hell of a thing.
Right.
When your butt is in that vice, and you're like, yo, I'm standing on principle like a mug.
Yo, you know how much fight you gotta have in you in that moment? You gotta have some real fight, and you gotta stand for something for real. Cause ain't nothing. Ain't nothing strong. I'm telling you, like that is tough.
That's what they call testicular fortitude.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Jake, just to bring it back to what you were saying, that whole thing was so disgusting and stood out to me, because if the DA and they really believed that he did it, if they said, we'll accept your guilty, plea or whatever, on what universe would they let a confessed cop murderer do 22 years? You know what I mean?
Thank you. Thank you.
They believe that they wouldn't have offered it, and that's just the most disgusting part of it, because that to me is just so obvious.
Absolutely. Okay, so now the next thing was, now we get into the whole.
Hold on, I think Crystal, you want to say something? Thought your hand was up.
To Jake, I hadn't seen him in a long time. I was trying to wave on the low.
So now this comes to the point that Ari just brought up. Now, they did a flashback and then another flash forward. So, February 2006. Now this is where they come up with the whole thing about Patterson's prints, right? So now the Supreme Court or whatever now they reversed the decision on Patterson because they say that those prints was inadmissible, right? Basically because the prints didn't really match him, as Rosemary describes it. You had to do some sort of overlay in order to, once again, I believe that those prints were manufactured. Okay. Right. So boom. So
Come on, say that one more time. You say you believe the prints what?
Manufactured.
Like I'm not even understanding. Like they hinged their whole case on them prints.
Right.
Put the door in the courtroom, and they are deemed inadmissible. Like, what is that? Like, that threw me off. Even when, and I knew that before the documentary came out. That just threw me off. Like, what are we saying here? If that ain't this, like, what are we saying?
And it don't match the original story too, because then if that was the case, wouldn't it be Sean's prints?
Right.
You know what I mean? So, which is it? Sean Shaw, Terry Shaw, once again, 7 different stories, But now these prints finally, and not for nothing, God bless technology too, because a lot of this dirt, comes to light now with new advancements and whatnot. So some of them little shenanigans that they was able to get over with in the 80s and in the early 90s that don't fly no more. You know what I mean?
Too, just that they actually were looked at by people who didn't have any skin in the game. I don't trust that original evidence was ever, truly examined for its, authenticity.
Absolutely. Right? When other eyeballs got on it, now things look different. Okay, so boom. So they now deem Patterson's prints inadmissible. His conviction is overturned.
Oh, part of self. To that point, right? As far as them tampering with the fingerprints, wasn't there a point when they took his girlfriend in, and when they was questioning her, that they took her prints, and then
her prints ended up on the gun.
Yeah, then miraculously they find her prints on the gun. So like did y'all miss that? You know what I'm saying? Like they stealing prints and then putting them and placing them. Like I don't know if no one else caught that, but I definitely caught that.
And not for nothing, let's do a little Bill Nye Science Guy segment. I don't know what type of childhood you had growing up or whatnot, but I could frame you for a murder with Elmer's glue. I can get a whole print of your whole palm and all your fingers with some Elmer glue. All right. And another thing too is, Scotch tape. You could touch something, you could touch this. I could put Scotch tape over it and lift your whole fingerprint. So, these are just, those are techniques that you could do at a dollar store. Okay. Right. Let alone.
But didn't they just say one fingerprint? So, like, why would she only have one fingerprint? Because didn't she specifically say they found one of her fingerprints?
The one they tested when they was questioning her.
You will have, you can't hold a gun with one finger.
Right.
That doesn't make sense.
Well, I don't, I don't want to incriminate myself, but you actually can hold a gun with one finger. You go like this. But all right,
but you know what I'm saying. Like
I know.
One fingerprint.
I digress. All right, so all right, let's go on. I'm over here snitching on myself.
Dry snitching.
But for real though, the part that was crazy to me in that is, once again, like the favor that they was going to do Sean, right? We'll give you time served, but you got to plead guilty. For him, they was like, yo, he ended up pleading guilty to a manslaughter and getting time served. But the condition of his, of course, was saying that Sean was the shooter.
This part is the part that confused me the most, because who was Terry Patterson's lawyer? Didn't they let him know everything was resting on this fingerprints? We go to trial, we could take our shot. I that's the part that kind of confused me the most. Did Terry Patterson give up despite his lawyer's protest, or did he just have a sucky lawyer?
Not for nothing. I don't know the brother at all. But you know, this documentary does not make him look like the greatest black man in the world. Okay, so there's a lot of questions about this guy. I hope he's all right or whatever, but you know, there's a lot of questions in there, you know,
Well,
from
I mean, to that point, as far as a lawyer, oftentimes folks get these public defenders and they don't really get into no cases. What public defenders do, man, is try to get you to plead. They try to get you to cop out to something because they don't want to do no work. They're not doing all that investigation. They're not looking at the case on its merit. They go in just with trying to get you to cop out to something. Well, look, you're facing natural life, right? If you say you was there, I may get you manslaughter. You know what I'm saying? And you might have not had nothing to do, but you're looking at someone looking at spending the possibility of spending the rest of their natural life in jail without getting out. You know what I'm saying? Versus maybe you'll do 10 years with good time and you'll get out. And some people who scared to death, you know, they're gonna take the lesser. And that's what happens. So when you ask about his lawyer, that's how they do. They're not really doing, they're not putting in the work. They're trying to close the case and get you to cop out to something.
this is the best you're gonna get, kid.
Well,
Right.
and even the ones who do, they don't have the resources. Like his first legal team, it seemed like their heart was totally in it. They were the best at what they did, but they were still not able to, you know, get the evidence because it was all in the hands of an uncooperative agency that was
Yeah, I was
avoiding
gonna say
their legal responsibility to show it.
Terry had a good Terry did have a good team at first, but they had like so much information. It was getting, I think even Scaspicio ended up getting, I forgot, I never could say her name right, but she ended up getting some of that information later on, didn't she?
Yeah. Yep.
After years and years and years.
And can I just say this? Can we not act like Terry didn't get his ass whooped? Because he definitely got his ass whooped at some point.
Oh, I think both. I mean, once again, these are the questions that, you know, I hope to get an opportunity to have, you know, a discussion with Sean if he's open to it. But these are the questions. We brought that up even the other day. You know, detectives don't ride in paddy wagons unless they're up in there giving you that elbow, you know,
exactly.
so on and so forth. So I don't, you know, both
because if you guys seen it when they first arrest them, well, Terry, because I think he was the first one, his eye is like bloodshot red. He's wearing the green hoodie and his eye is like bloodshot. I think it's his left or his right eye. But, you know, they made him say, you know that Sean did it. Say that Sean did it. You know how they do. Y'all know.
Yeah.
Neither one of these boys
did
this crime. Yeah.
Does anyone know the joint venture? This is what I was wondering too, because I was wondering why he wasn't more prominent, because if they was going after the joint venture, is my understanding that, you know, it would have been that their cases would have been predicated upon each other. Because meaning if one was found not guilty, then there was no way the other one could be if it was joint venture.
I just think he didn't hold his water. That's all it was. He just couldn't. That guy Terry just gave it up so early that, you know.
But I'm saying maybe he is not. Well, I don't know, but I'm just saying it seemed like he would have been more inclined to go. You know what I mean? Like I just wondered what his representation was, because from my experience going to people with court, that often was the case if it was joint venture, because if they couldn't prove it for one, you know what I mean? Like you have to prove it for both. You can't just prove it for one, because if you prove it for one or not prove it, then it's going to be the same for the other person if it's a joint venture.
Actually, and also too with the joint venture, they were saying at first that Terry was the principal and Sean was the secondary. Right. So, you know, that all that, the whole thing is, you know, whack as hell. All right, but let's go on to look, it's 9:03 right now. And we on the last thing. Let's keep it cooking, y'all. So after, okay, boom. So the man started on that, boom. Now the next scene where they go on is now when Conley basically doubles down. Dirty Dan Conley. and he now makes a statement, and he is like, yo, all gun blazes. No, certainly this is after Patterson's whole thing. Nope, doesn't matter. We're still staying on Sean. This is the first time where Sean says he's pissed off. And he's like, yo, and I'm still pissed off. Right? This is that bullshit. All right. So once again, the Patterson plea makes him say Sean was the shooter. Boom. We get back to the payments again. Now the hearing for the payments comes up. The comptroller says $83,000 was paid procuring evidence, whatever that means. Right? Okay. And they still were fighting for this discovery. This is the part where Sean was talking about, that they were just receiving stuff that they had been fighting for discovery from 20 years ago that they should have had at the first trial. Right? Boom. Now this is when it goes back to our guy, Reverend Rivers. So now it's at the Ella J. Baker house. It goes back there to one of these morning meetings. And for those who don't know, what was it, like Wednesday mornings or something? He would have these meetings, and it was like a community meeting, but the police would come and say, oh, this many hubcaps were stolen, this many, purses were snatched and homicides are down, whatever, little refreshments or whatever. Okay.
Hey, Brother Randy, you remember that invite?
Yeah.
It's a strange situation for folks who haven't been. And, once again, I have a relationship with Reverend Rivers, and I have no problem talking about him freely, publicly, because he will tell you himself he don't give a what nobody say about him and la, 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 la. So, these are all facts. Prominent minister that does not have a large church, right? So church is it's not a large church. But these meetings on Wednesday were probably like the largest gatherings where folks come for this police thing. And it would be, various, whatever, street workers, police, whatever. And as you saw, Slim, it was look, we've talked about overreactions a couple times in this thing. We talked about the overreaction of the cop who was like, nah, what you talking about with me? Do that? No, you're crazy. What are you talking about? We talked about the overreaction of the white woman who was like, rats? Oh, everybody hates rats. No, I would never rat, not me. That type of thing. And then here we have the overreaction of, first of all, we have to understand the cameras are on. The cameras are already in there. So the cameras are filming for this particular meeting. So everybody who's going to come in or whatever, you're going to get the extra over the top greeting.
Right.
My man's.
Oh, Brother Randy Mahizzle. Oh, in the shizzle. Oh, man. Oh, look at you, man. Oh, come here. Oh, bring it in. Up top, down low, up too slow.
Yo, it had me thinking bigger. It had me thinking bigger. Like, yo, how many years? Yo, like, how cool is he with these dudes? Like, how many? He been working. Like, he been in the hood. I know dudes who really was in the trenches and went to Freedom House. So it's like, how many years he been working with these folks? You get what I'm saying? Like,
it's a real delicate game, and this is
how close.
A whole nother thing. But at the end of the day, various people, him and others, trying to curry favor. Let me tell you, them people don't give a damn about him. Okay, they will lock him up just like they will lock me up or Pookie on the corner and any of us. They don't give a damn. It's all in his mind about being not just him and others' minds about being prominent and proximity.
But check this out, right? To that point, Jamal, and every time, they come out, you notice the criticism is always at the community, right? Like, so they're used almost like apologists. Like, we the real black clergy, we the black clergy, man, but black people need to get it together and
pull your pants up, all that Bill Cosby talk and all that.
Right.
Absolutely. And not for nothing. They've been doing it for a long time, and not for nothing too. Oh, here was the next thing. After he gave that big old super dap to old boy who I believe, and I'm gonna actually research that because I'm gonna, you know, take a picture of that and then I'll do it with it. But I believe that dude he dapped up is actually the dude Connolly, who was the captain who beat his wife, and during, you know, that Jake, you know the one I'm talking about, right? He beat his wife up there in Milton and all that. One of the more recent scandals.
Oh yeah. I don't know who he is, but I heard about that happening.
Yeah. So I think
with that case, but we need to. Was that recently?
Yeah. So that was okay. Look, remember when I was going at the folks on City Council and I was like, yo, look, all these things happened within 10 days. Within 10 days, old boy had beat his wife. That was a scandal. The cop got caught out there in Rhode Island with the internet strippers, and they took his gun.
Yeah.
And they took his gun. And the scandal with the folks in BPD headquarters, 11 officers who were, you know, beating the time cards and all that, blah blah blah, with the overtime scandal in BPD headquarters. All those things happening within the same 10-day span. I want to say, what is this now? It's 20, it was either, geez, I'm getting old. It was either February, because it was definitely February of 2019, or nope, it was 2019, because it wasn't COVID. Yep, 2019. No, 2020. There was no COVID in February. Yep, it was right before COVID. February 2020. Bang. So I think that's the dude Connolly.
Matt Connolly? You said Matt?
Is it Matt Connolly? I don't know his first name.
What'd you say? What'd you say his name was?
His name is Connolly. And Connolly, not Conley, like D.A. Conley, but Connolly, like John Connolly. But just look up Captain yo, I want to say it's on freaking Blackstonian. Look up Connolly, you know, domestic violence, Milton, officer charged in Milton with domestic violence.
Gotcha.
All right. But I think that's that guy. All right. So in any event, all right, let's move on. So so after that whole thing with the whole him dapping up old boy, then he also brags. Remember the next statement, he was like, hey, you know, I'm actually, to Greg Henning now, you know, I'm the first guy that endorsed your predecessor. So he openly bragged that he was the first clergy that endorsed Dan Conley,
right?
Who we know is the devil, or if he ain't the devil, as Paul Mooney says, he'll do until the real one get here.
I think it's because of that thing that you were saying earlier, Jamal, that notion of prominence,
and proximity.
That delusion of grandeur, right? Like I'm a talented 10th one.
Like we cool. I'm your boy.
Yeah.
You know me. You remember me?
Yeah. But like you said earlier, you know, he's kind of a minister with no church, kind of like the dude that, you know, that's always working but never has a job. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is your gig? Because you're really just like you trying to parlay your ministerness into a situation of power over others, as opposed to inspiring and educating and shepherding along in some ways, you know?
Absolutely.
Am I going too deep by saying these are the type of people that they put in, they give them leverage within the city, and then those are the people low-key screwing people over? I don't know, because that's what it seems like with this case.
If you're gonna say that, I don't know, to me, like, why are you proud of that? Because you enjoy Stan Connolly, you know what I mean? Like, because you're just trying to leverage yourself, I mean, to what, be good in their eyes? Because you're not really leveraging it for the community, because the community's not benefiting from Dan Connolly at all.
I'm with you. I'm on your side. You know, we on the same team. You know what I mean? Make America great again. All that stuff.
Well, yo, let me say, that was his claim to fame, right? Like, you know, Eugene Rivers' claim to fame was attacking Minister Farrakhan. Like,
of course.
That's what got him on the cover of Newsweek. That's what made him like the end thing. Like, he was in the time when Minister Farrakhan was having all men's meeting and getting the Million Man March together and all that. At that time was when Rivers, you know what I'm saying, was coming out like criticizing Minister Farrakhan. And it was like right at that time. Like literally that's when his whole stock just grew within certain circles, which is the opposition.
And you're actually being quite nice because just to classify it as criticizing, it was very slanderous.
Yeah, he went bashing him.
And much of what he said was very like, you could say, listen, I don't agree with Minister Farrakhan, I don't like him or whatever, but the level of stuff he was doing was just straight, it was straight disrespectful, and it was beneath regular people, let alone whatever his position is, where he himself is supposed to be a minister. I ain't really heard ministers talk like that. And
and let me say this, right? Like, he actually came forward years later and apologized to us, meaning the Nation of Islam. He apologized to Minister Don, and this was on our radio station.
Yep.
When we had the radio station, in the morning, Eugene Rivers actually went up there and apologized because he admitted what he was doing. He admitted, saying things, man, against us, to really propel himself, and he had a tone for that. So I do want to say that, and it is what it is.
And not for nothing, one more point on that. And two, he should know better because he came from the Nation of Islam. In terms of his father, what was Eugene Muhammad, right? And so, there's a whole history there. And I don't know if there's some sort of weird psychology where that, that played a part in it as well.
Well, he said, what he also said in that apology, he said he was really trying to replicate what the nation was doing, what the Muslims were doing in the Christian context, right? Like he was trying to be that dude in the street and have that street credibility and so forth. And he was trying to do that under a Christian context. Now, it's not me saying it. This is what he said out of his own mouth.
It was all a bite, and this is why we spoke the other day. The whole, because see, once again, everybody don't know this history, and but once again, that the 10-point coalition, y'all.
Hey, Slim, you all right?
Yo, I'm over here. I'm really going through it. My fault, bro. This is sick. This is too much game, bro.
Just breathe. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not Atlas. You don't have to carry the weight of the world, love. Just take a deep breath. Reflect and replenish.
But like we talked about a little bit yesterday, but so much so was it an attempt to duplicate and reshape was just the concept of the 10-point coalition, because that whole concept of 10 points, right? What was created by the Nation of Islam, Elijah Muhammad, right? And that has been there since the 50s, right? And so from that, other people have adopted it. Most famously, the Black Panthers, who will also tell you we got it from there, and they took it and they put it into their 10-point platform, right? And adopted it. And then Eugene Rivers years later comes with the 10-point coalition. So I want folks to understand that this is, this is a thing. Folks ain't making it up.
And let me make this connection too, right? Because it dovetails back to this trial, right? Because you have Terry, who's willing to, sell his man out for his own freedom. You know what I'm saying? And this is what we're seeing with Black leadership, where you have Black leadership that will be willing to sell out their own people for their own advancement. You know what I'm saying? So here you wanna disparage, disrespect, and attack Minister Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. You sell us out so that you can come off as the respectable, good Negro. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm the good Negro. These are the bad Negroes. And the thing about it is he parlayed that to some money. He got a lot of money doing that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just, that's how, it's sad that we sell our own people out, man, for our own personal advancement.
And then not for nothing. And then the rest of folks sold him out because they was trying to climb to be the top crab in the barrel. And that lecture money and that program money and that grant money get good. It's better than that collection and that tithe money. So, and you get to keep it all for yourself. So, you know, a lot of folks then that's the fall of the 10-point coalition and others, because then all the other ministers, well, you know, whatever, folks saw that there were opportunities, and damn it, we ain't fitting to waste no opportunities. So everybody wanted a piece of the pie. You dig? All right, let's keep moving now too, so we can get out here. So now it then moves to more of Rachel campaigning, and you know, they're showing Shannon. Now they go into the Old South Meeting House. Now this is where Henning now you know, talks about, you know, he's been endorsed, or other people are talking about the fact that he's, you know, been endorsed by DA Conley, and that he had amassed over $50,000 just from police alone, right? This is the same forum where Mike Maloney flops. He just fumbled, and that's where Rachel Rollins picked it up quick. And that was probably the most devastating one, where she was like, oh nah, I got this, give me that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that
And
was
so
cool.
yeah, that, you know, there was no recovering off of that. Now the one thing, because obviously she went wild on that, but one thing she said when she went into it, and I actually I'm gonna underline it because I want to hold her to this. One thing she said, you know, like, if you're a good cop, you got nothing to worry about from me. But she was like, but if you got this and that, and if you have racist Facebook pages.
Wow, I didn't know that was common.
Listen, so we definitely need to you know, send out our super snoopers and send her a list.
Hey, actually, we got a guy who does that for us.
Well, I don't know why that guy don't already know this guy and my other guys, because we all do it, and let's link up together.
No, you the guy I'm talking. You the guy I'm talking about. Beloved.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, I thought you had another guy. Listen. All right. All right. So then it got down to more campaign footage and whatnot, and then it got down to voting day, and this was another real warm moment, because here goes Sean in his first time to vote, right?
Amazing.
Now, and it's his young cousin who was walking him to the door, like, all right, look, you're gonna go in there, and this is what they're gonna do.
Sister.
Oh, that was the sister?
That's
I
the
thought
little sister.
Okay, I thought it was one of the cousins. Okay, part of cell. That's little sister. So walks him in and explaining to him, you know, bit about this is what they're gonna do. All right. And just to see that whole you know, like full circle. Right. Because he got locked up when he was 19. Couldn't even legally drink. Right? Now you come out, and now you're able to vote. You're able to be a grown man, and He spent his whole adult, you know, life in prison. And all these things that, you know, this is the part where folks like, you know, oh, don't take it for granted and all that type of stuff. But here goes a prime example right here. Because, you know, you might say, I don't care about voting. Yeah, you don't care about voting until somebody tells you you can't vote.
Right.
Okay. Then it becomes real important.
Right.
Okay. So you treasure it more when these things have been taken away from you and have been deprived of you. And now you really are like, shit, I'm a whole citizen and shit. I could vote. I got rights and stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that was a beautiful thing to go vote, put it on. And then, yeah, this is the end right here. They next show Rachel Rollins wins. They show a clip of her hugging Adam Foss. We talked a little bit about that. That's a little bit funny now. She speaks about her being a product of, you know, an Irish father and a black woman for Barbados. You know, so you know they got some good rum. And and she captured 80% of the vote, which is like, I don't know if that's ever been done before. That
like did they really, like, is that a correct statistic?
I'll go back and check or whatnot, but
because that's what I thought I heard him say.
Yeah. You know, I don't know if it was like 79.88 or if it was like 81.1, whatever, but we'll go back and check. I'll get an exact number for you, but whatever. That, my friends, is what you call a landslide. Okay.
That's impressive.
All right. Boom. Then Rachel Rollins references the Sean Ellis case. They're interviewing her on the way out, And she's like, yeah, this case or any others and boom, 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 boom. So now I want to see how much she has really, you know, taken a look. And once again, we talked about this book before, but really what can be done. And then the last point that was funny is, of course, then of course it ends off with the shot of everybody's friend, Jojo DePina, right? So there was a whole bunch of Netflix stars were made in this series.
Oh, they'll be milking it.
Yeah. And I mean, everybody's already started, so it's okay. But all right, so anybody want to chop up just that last little chunk that we just went through? And particularly anybody who has not spoken yet, let's go through some of this as we begin to get on the wind down, because this one been a long one tonight. This has been.
I'll say this, man, to the point you was making with him going to vote. You know, one thing that's glaring in this documentary is, you know, Brother Sean's civility. You know what I'm saying? His humility, like it just shines through. This is not a thug. This is not, you know what I'm saying? This is not a threat. He's not someone that is a threat or menace to society. You see him, you know, being happy about going to vote. You know what I'm saying? And like his humanity and his civility really shows through in this documentary, which is a beautiful thing. A beautiful thing.
I
You know,
agree.
so that stood out.
For sure. Just his whole style emotionally, like I'm sure that he struggled, but being able to come out in an emotional state to actually go to those spaces in him to do that in the face of that. I mean, he was a young boy, like all of his kind of developmental experiences happen locked up in a barbaric situation.
Right.
You learn a whole new way of communicating and being and emoting in that type of situation. And usually it's not really good a lot of times, as we see. So that was very inspiring to me to see that. And his mom, I loved his mom. Like she was just straight up, you know what I mean? Like honestly, she was like the beacon of honesty in that movie to me. Like totally, because she just was like straight up, he's getting railroaded. This is my boy. Yeah, I didn't do things the way that I wanted to, but that shit don't matter. Excuse me, sorry.
And once again, that speaks to the overall humanity, because once again, look, all the people in this documentary who are the people who are supposed to be painted bad, right? Mom's a crack addict, he's a cop killer. How is it that these people are more on, like these are the people who are telling honest truth?
Right.
The liars are the cops, the DAs, you know, they lying through the side of their neck. You know, it's deep.
Yo, who was the dude, the fat dude? He's like, this is the cleanest case or whatever. I don't know. I just wanted him to be gone. Nothing clean about it.
And not for nothing too, now that should say that to whoever's in charge now, need to open all his cases up.
Yeah.
Because if that's the cleanest case, then we need to look at all your cases.
Yeah. True.
Right.
That's real.
Super. Anybody else who hasn't spoke, who has something else to add?
No, I just thought that was very moving for Rachel. You know what I'm saying? That was moving. On that episode when she was talking about how where she came from and how she'll define everything. I thought that was ill. That was a crazy celebration. It was moving, and I can't wait till next episode. 'Cause I got a lot to say.
Word. Anybody else got any comments? Somebody who hasn't spoke yet, please chime in.
So I was just curious, and maybe I'm jumping the gun to ask this question, but Jamal, I know you work in the space of advocacy to no end. So what would you say are action steps that we can work towards? And I've expressed before that I work in the state legislature, but like, what are some action steps that we can work towards to prevent instances like this? I know that's a very broad question and that's really hard to answer. But I'm very curious in ways that I can use my position to promote a different approach. I don't know. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that question.
So a couple of real simple and practical things. So one, let's take a group like the New England Innocence Project. The reason that they have a hard time is because they're saying, hey, my client, Billy James is innocent. And, it could be a real quick thing if there wasn't this fight. So I think legislatively, if there was a way that would ensure that anybody who puts forth a petition for wrongful conviction that meets a certain a muster test, right? Because obviously you don't just want to get, letters from everybody who's just gonna be like, I'm innocent, you know what I mean? But ones that actually have, they can evidence that there has been some wrongdoing in their case. All of those cases need to be opened up. What is the holdup? DAs need to be compelled to do that. It shouldn't even, it should be compulsory. It shouldn't even be up to their discretion, because once again, to uphold the law and justice is if I killed your loved one, then I go to jail. But if I'm not the guy that killed your loved one, then that's not justice. And it's actually double injustice, because me who didn't do it is in jail, and the guy who did do it is out there, la-di-da-di-da, right?
Right.
So if really for that, there needs to be a way where they need to be compelled to have to listen to these cases. Okay. Also as well is that every DA in the state of Massachusetts does not have a conviction integrity unit. Okay. Some of them do, some of them don't, and it's not standardized. So the way that Brockton runs theirs is not the way that Suffolk County, DA runs it. So there needs to be a standardization, and every DA should be mandated to have a conviction integrity unit. Okay. Next thing. This is the easy one, because Massachusetts is a sucker for this. Massachusetts is a sucker for a study, right? So we need study, we need research, we need a commission, we need
task force.
Right. Well, generally, I was gonna say generally,
in particular.
but I was gonna say generally at the state house level, I think that they generally do more like a commission, don't they?
Yeah, that's the version of their the task force.
Yeah, I was just being facetious.
Right, no, I got you.
But you're right, Crystal. You're right.
Right, and I'm just trying to be specific in the language to, like, the language that is being used. Whatever that body is, we need a dedicated body, right? Once again, the same way that there was set up a commission on the Department of Corrections. Now there needs to be a specific commission that specifically deals with wrongful convictions in Massachusetts, that takes into account as evidence, look, we know there's a problem based on all the ones who have already come home, either flipped their case, beat their case, exonerated, whatever. We have a long list of folks who have already, so that we know is a fact. It's no longer in dispute anymore. We know that those were bogus cases, and that's done. So that is the evidence that we use to say, well, if we have 15 dead Bigfoots, there must be more. Okay. So now let's go find those other Bigfoots out there, as opposed to people saying, well, no, there's no other cases. Clearly there are cases, because we have this over here to evidence that. So now let's go get the other cases, open them all up. They need to be compelled. And I don't know, also too, this should also be incorporated. We talked a little bit about the other day. This is also a fiscal issue. So where we cannot maybe compel people on the legal thing or just the humanity and the justice aspect, we have to look at it. This is costing folks money. Okay. No wrongful convictions, no big settlements. I would rather not have to pay somebody $30 million because they've been locked up for 30 years. I'd rather them have had their life and the taxpayers keep their 30 million.
And
So
it's 50,000 a year to incarcerate them.
All that. So let's look at it like that, and not for nothing. I don't want to be prejudiced or what have you, but not for nothing. That's really the message that resonates with, I'm not gonna say middle America, middle Massachusetts. It's the bottom line. Make it make sense to them. Yo, this doesn't work and it costs you money. A lot of it, a lot of money. And we could have new schools, we could have skating parks, we could have whatever, but instead you blowing all this money on this dumb stuff.
Yeah. And there needs to be a higher level of individual accountability for those that are involved. For example, Robinson and Sarah got bagged for dozens of cases of misconduct, and they got caught, and they did 3 years in Fed jail, right? And paid back $100,000 a piece. So they probably did 18 months and paid back $100,000 of the money that they stole, right? I don't see where the accountability is there comparative to what citizens would get on the other end of their investigations. So if it was everything that Jamal said plus individual accountability that is comparative to what normal citizens would get if they were found guilty of a crime, if those types of things, especially for lawyers that litigate cases, I'm not talking about the general politics of prosecution and defense. Like, you got to take some level of objectivity and subjectivity depending on what side of the case you're on in defending or prosecuting your client, right? And or representing your client, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you purposely went out of your way. You know what I'm saying? You withheld evidence. You held up paperwork. You lied. You paid informants. Like a whole bunch of, like the Sean Drumgold case, they took the dude who was indigent and homeless, put him up in the Howard Johnson and fed him, and then gave him information and was like, all right, we need you to say, like, there needs to be a higher level of accountability for the individual who did that. Just like it was like Sean went to jail for years. Okay, if I'm a detective and I did all of that, like, the police department will take the weight and pay out money, but the individual detective, nothing. Like that to me has to change as well.
And on top of that, like what you were saying, I mean, if this, like you said, if this was on the other side of the line, they would have been investigated and prosecuted as habitual armed robbers. You know what I mean? Like drug possessors, you know what I mean? Like they were into.
They still be in jail.
Stuff that was getting people 20, 30 years. You know what I mean? And those sentences were running concurrently, and these people are getting 3. Like. That's
3 years, good behavior at a country club. They did 18 months.
Yeah, because it was at the top, if they probably started really talking, what would have happened. The top, the tumbling down,
Right.
The tumbling down. I really think like probably Newman Flanagan and a lot of those people were getting kickbacks. I really feel that that's what was going on. I mean, it makes sense. $250, they took way more than $250,000.
Right. Hell yeah. Hey, listen, y'all. It's 9:30 now. We about to get ready to shut it down. So I just want to use this opportunity. Anybody who has not spoken yet, who has anything to say, now is your time.
Well, I'm really excited to watch this episode after this great analysis.
Okay, so you haven't seen episode 7 yet. Okay.
I haven't seen any of the episodes actually, but thanks, Slim, for inviting me.
Well, you prepare to have your mind blown.
Yes.
I can already tell.
Yeah.
For real. For real.
All right. Anybody else who hasn't said anything yet, that got anything to say before we begin to close out? I will take that as a no. All right. Oh. Oh, no. All right, that was something else. All right. All right, so I will do my little thing that I be doing. All right, so hope everybody had a great day. Hope you did something great today. Hope you have a great rest of the night. Please tell somebody, or pardon me, tell somebody you love them. Better yet, show somebody some love. Show some love to a youth or an elder. And as always, push past the pain to the power. And as always, please choose righteousness over ratchetness. And as always, please don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe. All right. And with that, please, Minister Randy, would you take us out in prayer?
Sure. Hold on a sec. Attention prayer. In the name of the one true and living God, to whom our holy praises are forever due, we thank you for all your blessings. We pray that you continue to bless us as we go through this documentary. Bless us that we may get the great analysis and the passion behind what we discuss, that we may push forward to try to establish justice here in Boston and to reform the criminal justice system. In the name of all your prophets, we ask you this. Amen.
Ashe.
All right, y'all. So thank you for another evening. Thanks everybody for coming. Y'all go have a great rest of your night. Continue to spread the word. You know, the recordings are up on YouTube and all that, and I'll be getting to this one lickety split. Thanks everybody for coming. Peace, y'all.
Peace.
Thanks,
Peace, family.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.